Hey guys, Name in here for another Modern Meta breakdown. Kind of going to be consistently on Thursdays that we're going to be uploading now. This will be our fourth video of it, so if you guys have missed out on our previous ones and want to check those out, you guys can head over and check out all those other ones. We're going to start putting them up in a specific playlist so you can go through and take a look. So we've done Death Shadow, Jund, Abzan, Lantern Control, the Sun and Moon deck or Red White Nahiri style, Abzan Company, Kiki Chord, and going to be doing something a little bit different, shifting gears. I know we've had a couple different decks that have been popping up, like with a couple events taking place. Star City had their event over the weekend for Dallas, which was another win for Death Shadow. But there was also that Green White Company list. But we're gonna save that specific list when we talk more about other creature-based decks. Today is going to be a little different. We're going to storm it out. Talk about playing solitaire in Magic, because who doesn't like playing solitaire, right? This guy, I'm not a Storm player. This is not the kind of deck that I want to play. It does exist in Legacy, very powerful, of course, in that format there, but people were all like, oh, Gitaxian Probe was kind of helping Storm, and Storm wasn't even around really at all. But now Storm is back, so we're going to talk a little bit about the two Storm decks that you could be playing in Modern currently. Slightly different in what you're trying to do in each of these versions of Storm. So we're going to start with our first version, which is kind of the classic one, and we've of course got Caleb here to kind of go along with the deck that we're going to showcase, because this is what he did pilot previously here. So with the classic Storm aspect of it, for every card that you're playing this turn, including not only the cards that you're playing but your opponent are playing, adds to the Storm count. And then you're going to be casting a specific card like Grape Shot here, which is kind of one of the main ways to kill with Storm in Modern. Deals 1 damage to target creature or player, and then of course you make copies of it for your Storm count. So if you cast a bunch of cantrips and they're like, alright, I'm going to draw a card, or just generate mana and do things like that, just kind of cycle through my stuff, then I'm going to have a large Storm count and just kill you. Cool. The other way is, of course, Empty the Warrens, which just makes a bunch of 1/1 goblins, so you can just kind of overrun them, swarm the field. Now this one does cost 4 to cast, while Grape Shot only costs 2. Now both of them are sorcery speed, so that is something that you have to keep in mind. Those dispels that you're trying to bring in the board, not going to work to stop those cards, and then you have to keep in mind you're making a bunch of copies whenever you're activating this, so then you can be able to redirect it to different creatures or players for each copy, or just go, you know what, it's all coming at you. The deck has kind of increased, if you will, in popularity and resurgence based on our newest creature here from Aether Revolt, which people have joked about his name, but it's Baral, Chief of Compliance. Some people like Barrel or whatever, but he's basically a new version of Goblin Electromancer. He is legendary though, so you do have to keep that in mind, but he's 1/3, so does have decent amount of toughness on him to stay alive, does not pass the Bolt test, will die to that, but makes all of your instant sorceries cost 1 less. Same thing as Electromancer, but does cost, it is a 2/2, does cost a blue and a red, so maybe mana shouldn't be an issue for this deck because it is only 2 colors. Also does have that aspect of, if you counter a spell, you get to loot. And it does run remands, so that is an extra draw step set up for you. Now, the main objective for this deck, like we talked about, is to be able to build up a giant Storm count and go off. And it is 100% playing solitaire. You ignore what your opponents are doing, and you start to gather up some cards in your hand. You're going to be trying to get some mana accelerators in there. Desperate Ritual is one of them. Manamorphose, of course, adds 2. You get to draw a card off of that. Pyretic Ritual. So Desperate Ritual, Pyretic Ritual are our big ones to generate a lot of red mana there. Because you are going to be wanting to cast a lot of your stuff from the graveyard, Past in Flames is available. Now, the newer list here that we're running is called Gift Storm because it does now run Gifts Ungiven in there, which lets you search for 4 cards, different names. Your opponent picks 2 of them, they go to your hand, 2 go to your graveyard. Now, if you only pick 2 cards, because you can pick up to 4, they only pick 2 cards, well, guess what? They are going to be choosing both of those cards, and they're both going to the graveyard, which can actually be helping you out because you could be going for those Past in Flames and doing things like that. So the objective is to sit there, play out one of your creatures, Goblin, Electromancer, Brawl, and then start to go off with your mana. Once you get to the point where you've been able to cast some Serum Vision, some Sleight of Hands, some of these draw spells here to set yourself up. You know, the Manamorphose also is able to cycle, get to the point where you can be able to get your gifts to go off, be able to get enough mana to be able to cast your Past in Flames there, which allows everything to have flashback. And if you have, of course, any of your creatures out, these spells are all going to be costing 1 less. So like Grape Shot costs 1 red then, which is nice. Desperate Ritual, 1 red, generate 3. Pretty sweet. It's very short on the land base. You can see only 18. You can go for more budget with it. You don't have to run the Sculling Torrents, but now that they're reprinted, you know, might be something to look into. But Spirebluff Canal makes a lot of sense. You're going to have those fast lands in there, some fetches, some basics, if you will. But it is, again, a solitaire game where you just sit there and go, all right, well, here's turn 3. I've got my creature already out. You know, got some draws set up. I've got some mana accelerators. Let's see if we can go off and get there and be able to cast this Desperate Ritual or cast this Gifts Ungiven, be able to set myself up and get a good Grape Shot going. Sideboard wise, this is a go-to card that you're going to see in sideboards for the Storm. Blood Moon, which is a great card. Now, there's variants on how you have the rest of the cards, but we see sprinklings of some control, like Dispels, Spell Piercers, things like that. Bolts are often found in the sideboards. They need those single target removal, stuff like that. Empty the Warrens. Also, you'll find a couple extra copies of some Storm cards in there. We see that with Caleb's list, he was only running 1 Empty the Warrens main board, 2 Grape Shot. Some people prefer variants of it, but this is kind of a more straightforward style that you're going to expect to see. So, again, if you like basically sitting there and ignoring what your opponent is going to do, this is the deck for you. Now, it can be disrupted. This version does rely more heavily on the graveyard. So if you're running specific cards to target the graveyard and disrupt the graveyard, that can help you out. So keep that in mind for your sideboard side of things. Now, let's talk about the second Storm deck that's running around here. Cheerios is what people have, you know, often referred to it as, or just Puresteel Paladin. It only ran Puresteel for the longest time, and people were trying it out and was doing okay. You know, definitely that kind of fringe tier 3 version. This version, though, has kind of climbed up a little bit more, and another solitaire deck, very explosive, can just straight up win turn 2, turn 3. You know, if it gets the crazy hands that it needs. So again, only running 8 creatures. Puresteel Paladin, of course, what it's named after, original guy here. 2 white for him for a 2/2. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. And then, of course, if you have 3 or more artifacts, you can equip equipments for 0. That's more or less irrelevant. The first part is really what matters. Then we've got our newest addition here. 1 colorless and a white for our legendary dwarf advisor here. SRAM, Senior Edificer here. 2/2, basically the same thing that Puresteel Paladin does. He's going to allow you to draw a card whenever you cast an or equipment or a vehicle spell. So we only care about those equipments. So objective is to get 1 or both. Both just is crazy. Lets you get out one of your creatures, and then you play all of these equipments that you have. And guess what? They're all 0 cost. Everything that you want to be doing is going to be 0 cost here. All these equipments. So 4s, 3s, 4, 4. Pretty much your setup. So you're cycling every time you play one of those. All right. Spider Silk's Nets. Cool. Boom. Draw a card. Paradise Mantle. Cool. Draw a card. And you're going to retract. Return all artifacts you control to their hand. So you basically bounce all of those equipments that you've done and recast them all. Now you're able to do this because you can throw down a Mox Opal. Sweet. Also have ways to set yourself up. Some Serum Visions, Noxious Revival, put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. Cool. Well, I've used my Retract. Guess what? I'll put that back on top of my library. No longer in my graveyard. Pay 2 life to do that. Sweet. Now I'll just play another equipment, draw that card. Oh, look, here's a Retract. Sweet. Now I can retract and do it all over again. And you just get a giant storm count, and you cast Grape Shot, and you kill them. So that's basically how the deck is set up to go. Basically, as long as you can shut down the creatures, you shouldn't have too much of an issue with this deck. It's when you don't know that you're playing it initially and don't keep a hand that's focused on killing off his creatures, that's when you guys can suffer. Or, you know, maybe you just have a deck that's not geared around that. Like we saw one of the SCG events where Puresteel versus Merfolk, and the Merfolk player just was like, yeah, you got it. I have nothing that I can do against this. Okay, cool. Draw your whole library pretty much and kill me. And that can happen. Like, it can win crazy early unless you have a way to deal with it. But it only has 8 creatures. So that is, again, where you have to attack this deck if you end up facing against it. Now, we see some sideboard stuff that it's got, the grid, because you've got all these equipments that are going to be laying on the field. Well, now I can tap them and deal damage. So that's a nice little aspect of it. Leyline of Sanctity, of course, saying, hey, you cannot target me. So those Inquisitions, those Thought Seeds that you want to try to do to strip away my creature, not going to work. Those bolts, those burn spells, not going to work here. Also see Echoing Truth. Another way that you can kind of bounce some of your artifacts if you need to, but mainly dealing with planeswalkers, mainly dealing with creatures, just ways to help keep you alive. So that's a nice aspect of it. Here's our outcome here. Paradoxical outcome. Return any number of target non-land, non-token permanents you control to their owner's hand. Draw a card for each card returned to your hand this way. So again, just extra ways to just bounce things. Silence is another thing that they do run in their list here, because they can say, well, hey, you're not going to cast any spells this turn, and I'm going to 100% guarantee that I'm going to kill you. Sorry. Not sorry. It's a rude dude card. You'll see some other combo decks run Silence as well from time to time. There's one in particular which we'll talk about more in the future when we go over some different decks. Swan Song, 2 sideboard, 2 main board. So again, objective: play all my artifacts, return all my artifacts to my hand, play them again, and every time I'm playing an artifact, I'm drawing a card until I get up to a Grape Shot, and then I'm going to play Mox Opal, you know, be set up nicely, and I'm gonna kill you. Cast, boom, Grape Shot, and you're dead. So Storm is a thing in Modern, guys. It does exist. If that's what you want to be doing, you can. You know, the decks do exist. Modern is such a wide open format, and it's set up nicely that if there's a specific style that you want to play, you can actually do it right now for the format, and things are really fun and really exciting for it. So make sure you guys are playing all these different decks, and let me know what decks you guys are currently using in Modern, because I'm still bouncing around between lots of different decks, and I haven't really found my home since the whole Infect stuff has fallen off. With the way the meta shaped up, Infect is not positioned well against a lot of these decks, but it happens from time to time. So metas shift and change, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to highlight the meta currently, because it's so wide open right now and so exciting to see so many different decks. Now, as a reminder, if you guys like this stuff, please hit the follow button, subscribes, all that kind of good stuff. In chat, let me know if there's specific decks that you'd like to see. That's one of the reasons why we were able to talk about the Abzan Company Kiki Core decks last time, because some of our viewers requested it, and so that was one of the videos that we did end up making. We also, of course, have Modern Magic Mondays. We are almost done with season number 4. If you guys have not seen any of that, Twitch and YouTube.com/Modern Magic Mondays. Weekly Modern coverage for over a year now. We've been doing it, so you guys can check out all that high-level content that we've got over on that side of things. At the beginning of the video, I talked about the PAX stuff that we're doing, because we did end up going to PAX, my wife and I, and recorded some of the videos. The first one is up. It's maybe 11-12 minutes of our travel on the train, going to the aquarium, doing some stuff around Boston. The first video of actual PAX is going to be a short one, because I didn't spend as much time filming, because I spent a lot more time doing stuff and just like taking everything in, exploring and seeing all the different stuff at PAX. But the second day of PAX is going to be a little bit longer, I believe. So, you know, check those out. Those are going to be sprinkled over the next couple of days, maybe a week maximum, to get the couple other videos for that. But again, Modern Meta Breakdown is going to be coming up every Thursday for the foreseeable future. I've made a list of about 30 some decks that we can be talking about and showing off here. So if there's one in particular you'd like to see, or specific ones you want to hear more about, let me know, and I'll do my best to highlight them for you guys. But that's going to do it here. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you guys next game.